The year is 695, and an osprey flies over a raging battle. Arrows and atlatl fly through the air towards their targets, and soldiers armed with obsidian and wood weaponry brawl in the jungle. The Ajahs, or lords of each unit, called Batabs, fight alongside their underlings, and the brawl begins to turn into a bloodbath. Suddenly, the sound to retreat is given, and one of the two battling armies begins to flee into the jungle, with the victorious army in pursuit. The Mayan culture exists on the Yucatan Peninsula in modern Mexico, Belize, and Guatemala, and has inhabited the peninsula for thousands of years. However, before 1492, when the Mayan culture held dominion over the peninsula, things were very different. Mayan society operated in a system of city-states that often warred with one another. And today's story is about two of the most powerful of these city-states and the intense rivalry between these two pre-Columbian powers. The city of Tikal was one of the largest cities in the pre-Columbian Mayan world, with a population of up to 90,000 residents at its height. Monuments in the city date back to at least the 4th century BC, but the city was likely inhabited much earlier. However, Tikal's height of power began around 200 AD and would put it into direct conflict with its nearby contemporary, Kalakmul. It is not known exactly when Kalakmul was settled, much like Tikal. However, Kalakmul's sigil of the snakehead, dubbed Khan, has led this power to be called the Kingdom of the Snake by modern researchers. At its height, Kalakmul's population surpassed 50,000 people. However, the defining feature of the history of these two cities is the centuries-long, intense rivalry between the two. By 537, Kalakmul had conquered the independent city of Yaxchilan, giving it major territorial advantages over Tikal, as it had nearly surrounded its rival's territory. Kalakmul allied itself with Tikal's rivals, including the city-states of Caracol, El Peru, and El Zotz. While Tikal's kingdom held around 500,000 residents throughout its territory, it is estimated that the Snake Kingdom held a total of 1.5 to 1.7 million people by 537. By 546, the Tikal allied city-state of Naranjo was captured by Kalakmul, with a puppet leader placed on the throne. In 561, Kalakmul crowned a new Ajah by the name of Sky Witness at Los Alcranes, beginning a new dynasty. Sky Witness solidified the alliance with Caracol, which was once Tikal's ally. In 562, however, Caracol would lead a raid directly into the heart of Tikal, capturing the Ajah, Wakchen Kawil, and sacrificing him, ending a dynasty. Despite Tikal winning a victory against Caracol in 564, they would ultimately lose the war by 572, the year Sky Witness also died. 123 years later, Tikal would come back, however. As Tikal slowly regained its strength, its smaller rivals, like El Zotz, declined. The time between the major conflicts has been referred to as a Cold War, due to the fact that there wasn't any major battles or political changes, but the two powers remained hostile toward one another. The Second War would not break out until 650. In 629, Tikal's Ajah, Kinich Muan Jol II, made his son, Balaj Chan Kawil, ruler of a city-state known as Dos Pilas. This action would re-spark the epic contest for political supremacy between the two powers, with the Snake King of Kalakmul, Yaknum the Great, attacking Dos Pilas and forcing Balaj to flee to the allied city of Aguateca. Then, in 657, Yaknum attacked Tikal itself and drove the Aja and Balaj's half-brother, Nun Ujol Chak, out of the city, establishing Kalakmul as the supreme power in the region, forcing both Balaj and Nun to pledge fealty. In 672, Nun attacked Dos Pilas and made Balaj abandon the city for the nearby town of Chacna, which would be burned by Nun the next year, causing Balaj to take flight again. He traveled to the city of Hicks-Wits, today called Zepote Bobal. When Kalakmul again defeated Nun in 677 at the Battle of Pelil, Balaj was able to return to Dos Pilas, and in 679, Balaj Chen Kawil was able to defeat Nun Ujol Chak and take the throne of Tikal, establishing Hassar Chen Kawil as the new Aja. Balaj began a program of inscriptions around 682, recording his victory over his half-brother and the fealty he owed to Kalakmul. In 682, he traveled to Kalakmul to engage in ceremony with Yaknum the Great, and 4 years later, he returned to witness the accession of Yaknum's son, also named Yaknum. Balaj also refounded the dynasty of the city of Naranjo. Balaj died in 692. 3 years later, in 695, Tikal would defeat Kalakmul in a large and decisive battle, re-establishing itself as a great power in the region. After Kalakmul's defeat in 695, violence continued, but slowly died down. Despite Tikal being more prosperous, Kalakmul still controlled Naranjo, Dos Pilas, and El Peru. In 733, Tikal would win a battle and capture one of Kalakmul's nobles, holding him captive until 736 and building an altar to commemorate the event. However, the war was about to escalate even more. The small city of Quirigua was a vassal of the larger Copan. It eventually grew to around 16,000 people by 720, and in 724, the leader, Kaktilil Chen Yapat, would be installed on Quirigua's throne by Copan's Aja. However, in 734, Kak declared himself Aja of Quirigua and declared independence from Copan. This sparked a 4-year-long revolutionary war. In 736, Kalakmul's Aja, Wamal Kawil, met with Kak, and 2 years later, the forces of Quirigua captured and executed Copan's leader, winning the city's independence. While Quirigua was technically Kalakmul's vassal, it was never directly under the Snake Kingdom's control. But Copan never attempted to reconquer Quirigua out of fear for Kalakmul's military. Despite the mutually beneficial alliance between Quirigua and Kalakmul, Tikal was able to lead a major offensive in the early 740s, capturing El Peru in 743 and Naranjo in 744, destroying Kalakmul's once powerful trade network and ending the Third War. Kalakmul would never rise again. After 790, most of the city-state's former territory had been lost, and in 810, 3 stelae were raised to tell the story. In 899, the last stele record was raised in Kalakmul, and the last stele at Tikal had been raised 30 years earlier, in 869. By the end of the 10th century, both cities were largely abandoned.